This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs the Playbook, and I have another incredible boxer here, and this is great. Mike Lee, welcome to the Playbook. He is a light heavyweight, top-ranked boxer, but more importantly, a great entrepreneur. You are the co-founder of Soul CBD. We get plenty of boxers, man. I represented Evander Holyfield, so on that respect, we had Oscar De La Hoya, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis when I was at Lee Steinberg.
Wow.
Did some big fights. Chris Arreola was my last boxer in the heavyweight division, one of the toughest guys ever. But we were talking about toughness in being an entrepreneur, and I talked about you had your first loss, third round knockout in July, and I would not step in the ring. I've been around boxing a long time, but most people, when I tell them my story of losing a ton of money and losing other people's money and going bankrupt, there seems to be that one up. Wait a second, maybe I'd rather step in the ring than be an entrepreneur. What was the similarities to, it takes a lot of consistent hard work, but where did that similarity come into getting and being a co-founder of a company while you're boxing?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, there's so many similarities with boxing and entrepreneurship, and ultimately it's about getting knocked down 7 times, getting back up 8, right? And so even my last loss, I just fought for a world title at the MGM Grand in front of, thousands of people, and another million on TV, and I got my first loss. I came into that fight 21-0, feeling on top of the world, was ranked 3rd in the world, and the better man won that night. But I'm proud of my performance because I got knocked down 3 times throughout that fight, and I never gave up. The ref ended up calling the fight because I have always said since day one, I'm the kind of person, whether it's life and business, you better knock me out completely to get rid of me. And I think even through my loss, I showed that. I showed that I had the courage to get up, because the toughest moment is when you're on your knee right there and you know that this guy has my number and I don't know what I can do, and you still stand up because you want to keep pushing forward. And I think that boxing, through broken hands and broken noses and broken ribs, has really taught me to push through the pain and to recognize that that pain is a gift. And why I say that is because I truly believe that pain is the greatest catalyst for change that you have, right? And it's only through going through that pain and getting knocked down that you learn about yourself, and you learn what to do and what not to do. And that's what I've taken not only in boxing, but I've transferred it now into the entrepreneur world.
There's great wisdom in what you're talking about, because I hear a lot of people in sports tell me, fear is what motivates them. I love people that tell me pain, right? Because the difference is fear is a soul-sucking energy. It doesn't motivate you. It focuses you, and through focus we can have some success, but it's never going to be an inspiration. Pain, you tie directly to lessons, and I tell people all the time that pain is the indicator that you haven't learned a lesson. Whether it's physical pain, you just haven't learned that lesson yet, how to resolve that, or emotional or spiritual or business pain, financial pain. All that is an indicator that you haven't learned the lesson yet. And it should be inspirational to you that I want to go learn that lesson. One of the things that I talk about when I lost everything, the one day of depression that I had, is that Rocky came on, which is, I'm a big Rocky and Rudy guy, obviously.
Yeah.
And I watched him do what you did in your championship fight. He knew where he was going. He got knocked down. And I saw that, if he could look up, he could get up. And I started looking at my life and saying, wait a second, I'm only 30-something years old. I've lost $100 million or more, but I can look up. And I know a lot more now. There's a lot of lessons that I've learned. What do you use, in analogous to business too, but there you are knocked down for like the 3rd time or whatever. And you know that you're at least against a formidable opponent. You have challenges in front of you in order to win. And this is true in business, right? Like, we're out of money,
Of course.
Employees, there could be all types of different challenges. What do you use to get up? Because a lot of people don't have that in them.
It's funny. My father used to tell me at a very young age, tomorrow is promised to no one. And I always remembered that. And so I knew no matter what, I knew when I first turned pro that my idea was whether or not my first fight I break my hand or face and never fight again, or I become a world champion, at least I can go to bed at night knowing that I went for it. And honestly, that ideology just courses through my veins to where I don't want to give up, because I know one day I'm going to be on my deathbed and I'm going to regret if I do. So I know it sounds kind of morbid, but for instance, when I drive by cemeteries, I smile. I've always been that way because it's a constant reminder that I'm going to be there one day. And my dad has always put that in me at a young age, and maybe too young, but it kind of taught me that, you need to live your life to the max and push through day by day, because we just saw what happened to Kobe. I mean, that shocked the world. It's like tomorrow is not promised to you. And so I honestly think about that when I get knocked down. I think, will I respect myself when I'm 100 years old and I'm lying on my deathbed? And if I don't get up, the answer is no.
And why boxing and why CBD?
So I was about 12-0 undefeated in my career, and we talked about pain earlier. I was undefeated on top of the world. I fought in Madison Square Garden, Cowboys Stadium. I got to fight on HBO, ESPN. My ego was huge. I felt like I was invincible. And I was about 27 years old, and all of a sudden I started getting really sick. And about 2 weeks before a big fight, we had to cancel the fight because during a media workout, I went to the bathroom because I thought I was going to pass out. I was in so much pain. They ended up rushing me to the hospital. I spent the next 2 years in and out of the ring and in hospitals battling what I later found out was an autoimmune disease known as ankylosing spondylitis. My immune system was shutting down on me completely. So that right there was some of the darkest, toughest times of my life and really changed me as a human being. In fact, I watched your TED Talk about empathy and gratitude, and I would honestly say that empathy and gratitude are a couple of the biggest things that I learned going through that. Before that period in my life, it was all about winning fights, making money, ego, ego, ego. And that pain humbled me, spending 2 years in those hospital beds and doctors telling me I would never fight again. I was on 8 different medications. I finally said enough was enough. I was completely addicted to painkillers. It was the darkest, most depressing moments of my life, and it was my rock bottom. And I knew I had to make a change, and it started with my mind. And I started diving into books about health and meditating and looking for so many ways outside of prescription medication. And I went from 8 medications to 0. And it wasn't easy. I took a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but I learned to control my mindset. And everything between reading guys like Tony Robbins or Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I became obsessed with this idea that your mind can cure your body. And not only did I hop in the ring and fight again, but I won 9 more fights and fought at the highest level for a world title in front of 1 million people. So CBD was a big part of that for me and why I started the company. CBD started helping me with anxiety, started helping me with pain. I kept turning to, in the past, medication and Tylenol and heavy duty painkillers. And most professional athletes know that. They know, listen, if I don't step in the ring and I don't train, someone else will. There's always someone younger, hungrier, more talented waiting for their opportunity. So that's how, initially I got addicted to those painkillers, A, because I needed them just to get out of bed with this autoimmune disease, and B, I knew if I didn't take them, my career would be over. So the problem were the side effects, and that's where CBD and a lot of all-natural remedies came into play, and I started researching all these different health modalities that you can use outside of that prescription medication, and I found that CBD, which is all-natural and comes from the hemp plant, and specifically what I was taking, 0 THC, started helping me with sleep, anxiety, and most importantly, inflammation. And I knew going through that journey, I became empathetic, and especially empathetic to people in pain. And you as an empath understand that. Like, I look at somebody in pain and I feel that pain.
Feel it. Oh, yeah.
You feel it in you.
I can't be a doctor for that reason.
Right. To the point where it'll move you to tears.
For sure.
And just because I'm in the ring and fighting and, I have to be this masculine person doesn't mean I also can't harness that superpower. And it took me getting knocked to the lowest of low to change who I was as a human being and now be an empath and empathetic to humans. And I think, whether it's a CBD company or speaking or touching other people's lives, I want the next 70, 80 years of my life, hopefully, to be about connecting with humans and helping them get out of pain. And that was really the origin of Soul CBD.
It's interesting because there's a lot of people, number one, with great ideas, 2, that are passionate about and experiential about the products in which they want to market and to serve and to produce. And I see that there's a challenge in entrepreneurship between this romanticized idea of, CBD changed my life. I'm an empath. And, it's a great story. But as a pragmatic business person, someone that monetizes things, I'm looking and saying, okay, Mike, CBD is a crowded space.
Sure.
There's, whatever sport there is, there's a Mike Lee in baseball, football, basketball, hockey, wrestling, and I get to meet them all. Why is Soul CBD different, and why will it succeed in a space? I'm not diminishing the capacity because I know the product's exceptional.
Of course.
I've used it myself. And two, I know that a great entrepreneur can make things happen. But, if I'm an entrepreneur or a VC or an angel investor, which I'm all three, I'm looking at going, it's a great story. I know it changed your life, but why are you so confident that you're going to succeed?
Well, on the product side, one thing I can speak to is a lot of athletes go in, and I've been this person with sponsorships. You just tag your name to a brand. This was different. My sister and I started this out of a passion to help people, and I've literally been in the fields and in the labs and seeing exactly what's going into our product and making sure with COAs, third-party lab verification, that we are sourcing from the highest level, that we are doing product innovation and ideation from the highest level. Because, when I fight for these big titles, WADA and USADA, they're knocking on my door, and I have to drug test as well. And so it's really important that I understood as an athlete exactly what's going in my body and that I was giving everybody else that same thing. Now, there's a lot of CBD companies out there. So on the financial side, as an investor, I think what separates us from the pack, outside of the fact that we have the highest quality products, which there are certain CBD companies that are doing that. I'm not naive. I'm not going to say that, anything that we have is extremely proprietary in that sense. Although we are coming out with some other products that will be proprietary, but CBD in and of itself, the actual cannabinoid, everybody is using, right? What separates us is our community. And I think especially my sister. So my sister, her name is Angie Lee. She's a top Forbes 100 podcast. She's a huge entrepreneur and sales marketing coach. And she hosts these huge live events for female entrepreneurs. Last year, she hosted an event called Pays to Be Brave in San
Mike.
Diego.
Let's get your sister on
here.
Yeah,
no, listen.
Where's my producer, man? What the heck? I got the secondary, dude.
Yeah,
No,
you got the B squad.
All right,
now.
Angie, you hear me?
Yeah.
Come on. You're welcome to the podcast.
But Angie's incredible. Not only is she a podcaster, but she changes lives. She's kind of like a 29-year-old Tony Robbins.
Oh,
so
awesome.
At her event last year, she had 1,500 women fly from all over the world to come see her speak. This year, they moved her into arenas. She has 3,000 women coming to see her speak. She'll make them dance and laugh and cry and learn. And so I'm so proud of her. And I know that for us, it's been community first, brand second. And really, when you talk about valuing a company or what makes our brand unique, especially as you talk about investors and whatnot, I think that has really served us really well, is serving our community first and the brand second.
Yeah, and I think an underestimated aspect of what you're talking about, one, still, is that people sell to people.
Amen.
Right? They really do. And that, CBD is a proven product now. That's why so many people are getting involved with it. But I don't think we understand the capacity and potential of the 4.2 billion people that you and your sister can reach. And as I look at it, looking at Angie and her brand and community building, inspirational speaking and programming, as well as the tenacity, persistence, as well as, the authenticity of you utilizing the product yourself in the way that you do, there is where I see a great combination that truly distinguishes both of you. As an investor, I invest in people because people sell to people. And I don't think, like I said, that people understand the potential. Even in a crowded space, there is always a winner. Millions of people play football, baseball, basketball, and boxing. Takes a special person. I call it a spirit of excellence in order to be a champion. Only so many people ever get the opportunity to step in the ring into a championship fight, let alone face the challenges and obstacles and voids and shortages and the lessons that you've learned. Through all of that, you must have learned some lessons as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
Right? Obviously, as a boxer and with health challenges you have, what's the number one lesson that you've learned working with your sister in this business that you had no idea about when you first started on the venture as a co-founder of Soul CBD?
passion is everything. That's the number one thing I've learned, because if you're passionate enough, you will find smart people to work with you, for you, around you. If that passion is your driving force, then you will find a way how, right? And I know that sounds a little Tony Robbins-esque,
I like
but yeah, but I think, you can point to so many different factors in entrepreneurship, and passion isn't always the complete answer, and I'm not saying it is. But if I'm willing to stay up later, if I'm willing to make more phone calls, if I'm willing to work harder to try, and even if that business fails, I will take that knowledge and put it to the next one. And that's the one thing I've seen with Angie, how Angie went from a college dropout to having thousands of women now attend her course and a huge platform. And she's built multi-seven-figure businesses just on her brand alone. And she's 29 years old, and she does it out of authenticity and passion. And so working with Angie, that's really what I've seen. And I know for me too, how I became one of the best fighters in the world was passion. I'm obsessed with this sport. I will run on the treadmill until I pass out. I will sit in the ring. My 2 fights ago, I broke my rib in the second round, and I fought 8 more rounds with a broken rib. Some of the worst pain of my life was for a junior world title on CBS. But I'm passionate, damn it. And if I want something bad enough, you better kill me to stop me.
And last question concerning that is that boxing is an individual sport, although you're relying upon your team.
Yeah.
But in the end, as I have represented boxers myself in championship fights, there's nothing me, the trainer, the corner guy, like there's nothing you can do. And there's only you and the other guy in the end. Entrepreneurship is a little bit different, especially as you're a co-founder with your own sister.
Yeah.
And how did you learn? Because you're not a championship boxer without, consistent behavior, obsessive consistent behavior.
Yes.
I said the biggest challenge of working with so many great athletes in my career is I'm dealing with a bunch of OCD, anal retentive, crazy people, right?
Superstitious too.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of personality traits that I have that I don't want to be around, and which did make me a great entrepreneur earlier on because I was a control freak. So how have you learned, because you are extremely humble, empathetic, you seem like so authentic about your love for the company, the love for your sport, but also the love for your sister and respect for your team there, coming from such an individual sport since junior world championships to your title fight recently, how have you transferred your kind of team philosophy from being such an individual athlete that everything's on my shoulder? Because you definitely everything's on my shoulder type of guy.
Yeah, it is. And that's become difficult and something I need to get better at, honestly. And I think it's about understanding your weaknesses and your strengths, right? And that emotional intelligence to understand that. And so I've tried to surround myself with a great team, people that were smarter and lacked in, or had strengths in areas that I lacked. But I'm learning that as I go, man. And that's the beauty of this. I've gotten knocked down a lot of times throughout entrepreneurship and gotten back up. But what I've learned the most from is those painful situations, right? So in no way am I perfect. I got a long road. I'm going to make a lot more mistakes. I've made a ton already. But I think going from that individual sport to where that was the beauty of boxing, is where when that bell rang, I knew at the end of the day, it was all up to me. So it was incredibly scary as you're sitting out there in a ring in front of 20,000 people. And I've done it 22 times or more. And you're risking your life. And more importantly, you're not thinking of it like that. You just don't want to be embarrassed. You want to do your best job. You're putting it all out in the line. And so going from that individual mindset to now I need to rely on a team and trust that my team and certain people I hire and employees will have the same vision and same passion is difficult. It's been tough. You probably have a lot better answers than I do.
Oh,
so
man. Well, I told you that was the last question, but I lied because I got to ask this next one. One of the other things that came to mind as you're explaining that is, how do you stop yourself from being so hard on other people? Because, one of the things as a young entrepreneur and leader and executive, my mentor told me, I was like, I'm just treating people the way that I'd like to be treated. And my mentor said, Dave, you cannot treat people the way you would treat yourself. Because you are so hard on yourself, you will literally, wear everyone out or even, put them into the ground. Because I can tell you and I have that quantum memory. We're the exact same. Have you developed any skill sets to back off and just, not push somebody until, the third time they're knocked out?
Well, what I try to do is I try to usually take about 24 hours to sit back. And I've noticed that when I'm quick to the trigger or I get heated on something or I feel like that person's not putting enough effort in, I usually try to take about 24 hours and let it sit and marinate. And if I still feel the same way in 24 hours, then maybe there's some truth behind it. So I think I read that, so I'm not claiming that that's my theory. I read that
you got
somewhere,
it from me, buddy. It's
Did I?
stop, drop, and roll. Come on. Mike Lee's a huge Dave Meltzer fan, and I'm gonna get Angie to follow me too. This is awesome.
We'll get Angie to come on.
We'll
love
do it again.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I really appreciate your insight, also your honesty and illumination of not only what it's like to be in the ring, but the fear and the anxiety and the stress of being outside the ring. One that I've handled much better than, I'm like a heavyweight when it comes to entrepreneurship. Very few people have been knocked down as many times as me.
It's
or
inspiring,
big in
man.
the fights.
I've
It's
watched
awesome.
all your stuff, man.
I love it.
I'm a big fan.
Well, I appreciate that, and hopefully it inspires other people, because if I'm going to inspire people like you, I'm doing something right.
Thank you.
Incredible having you on here. I got Mike Lee, light heavyweight, top-ranked boxer, but more importantly, an incredible person, philanthropist, and entrepreneur with Soul CBD. This guy knows his stuff. Check out his brand. This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.